the recording now.
Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Ray Lindley. I'm the Executive Director for Array Global Accreditation. It's a joy to be with you again. Last month, for those of you who are here, you know I was on vacation and the time difference was just so much that I couldn't participate. But I did watch the workshop on video, and it sounds like it was an excellent time and that you enjoyed it very much. But it's good to be with you again. This is the monthly workshop that we do for Array Global on the third Saturday of every month. And we actually only have two workshops left this year, which Dr. Jake is going to be talking with you about soon here. And the third Saturday in April, and then the third Saturday in May. So it'll be great to be with you then also. But welcome to all of you. We have a really exciting workshop for you today. And I'm without any further word from me, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Jacob Frankham, who is our Associate Executive Director, and he has some announcements and a few other things. I think he's still working on some of the connections. We don't have you all on here yet, but hopefully they'll be connecting very soon. So Dr. Jake, it's your show now.
Thank you, Dr. Ray, and welcome everyone. Where I'm at, it's actually snowing. It's kind of unusual this time of the year, but it's beautiful and it's good to be inside where it's nice and warm. So welcome from all over the world. We're excited about the presentation that's taking place today. And we have a couple different announcements I want to make sure that you're aware of, and I'll put these in the chat. We have some upcoming activities, some really cool activities. Right now is the famous Array Global Stella Science Fair. Last year, we had well over 1,000 participants of students who recorded themselves, had a great scientific experiment, and presented that to us where we could recognize them and evaluate their work. We also have something that we call Me and My Community, because we recognize that schools are not just about imparting knowledge, but also developing character. And Me and My Community allows students to get recognized for some of the service opportunities that they participate in their community. And so if you have a student from kindergarten to grade 12, even those kindergartners can learn how to do service. If they can document 20 hours of community service, we will recognize them for that service that they've done in their community. And then also, like Dr. Ray said, we have two more workshops. The next workshop is about mathematics, but it has some instructional practices. So we'd encourage everyone to come. If you're an English teacher, you're a social studies teacher, it doesn't matter. You'll be able to learn a lot from it. So we're excited to have that workshop next month. And then in May, like we usually do, the Array Global Administration and some of our main team members do the final presentation and workshop for the year to answer any questions, and then also to kind of give you some ideas on how you can get students to keep learning during those summer months. So please make sure that you follow us on our Facebook page, get onto our website. And again, if you have questions about the accreditation process or are interested in that in any way, please let us know. And how the workshop goes is we'll turn the time over when we're there after we introduce our presenter. Dr. Van Beek will present for about until the hour is up, and then we will post the workshop survey in the chat. We won't do it until the very end. There's always questions, so I'm just trying to make it very clear from the very start. So at the end, we'll post the survey. You'll fill out that short Google survey. You do have to post in there the things that you learned that you can apply directly into your classroom. We ask you to post 3 different things that you've learned. Post that in the survey link, and then by Tuesday, you'll have your certificate in your email, along with some other information to invite you to our next workshop. So with that, Dr. Ray, I think that's everything that we have
Just one quick thing,
Oh,
Dr.
yeah.
Jake. For this May workshop, if you have any questions or if you have a topic you would like us to discuss that is really something you've really been thinking about, please put those on your workshop evaluation today or anytime, or send an email to us and say, I would like you to discuss in a particular topic. That would help us a lot in designing the May workshop. So anytime, either today or next month or in between then, send it on Facebook. That will help us a lot if we know the things that are on your mind that you would like to have us discuss at the May workshop.
With that, Dr. Ray, I'll turn the time over to you.
No, you'll turn it over to Dr. Mike.
Mike.
Ah, there you go.
Hello, everybody. Glad to see you are here with us again. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Michelle Van Beek. She's a colleague of mine at Northwest Nazarene University in the Graduate Education Department. She has been an elementary teacher. She's been a elementary administrator. She's been an innovator in technology, and technology is certainly one of her specialties. And Dr. Van Beek, it is my pleasure to be able to introduce you and to bring you on with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Poe. It's wonderful to be here with all of you on this Saturday, and we'll go ahead and get some slides up and running here, maybe. Okay. We good? Can we see those? Okay, great. Well, it's nice to be here with you. My name is Michelle Van Beek, and today we're going to talk about empowering student-centered learning with technology. And we're going to do it through a framework called the HACK model. And it is a passion of mine. As Dr. Poe has said, I believe in putting students at the center of what we're doing. And technology is a tool that we have to do that. And so we need to leverage that. So a little bit of a description about this workshop. So this workshop hopefully is going to help educators integrate technology to support student-centered learning. Participants will leave with practical ideas for using technology and student choice to promote deeper learning in the classroom. So you'll notice everything for today. I want to bring back to those concepts of deeper learning, getting students highly engaged, putting students at the center, and using technology as a vehicle to do that. And so the framework that we are going to use, oh, actually, before I jump into that, I forgot, I do have a little bit of audience participation. So if on your phone or your computer, if you can get to menti.com, you can scan this QR code, or you can just put this into your web browser. Also, there's a link in the chat. And I don't know if maybe Dr. Frankham, if you could send that back out.
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect.
The Menti.
Yeah, the Menti. So we're going to get started with a little bit of audience participation. And what does the word innovation mean to you? It's a little bit of a buzzword, I think, that we hear quite a bit in education, and we all think of different things. So once you join that Menti, I think it will give you an opportunity to put some words, and we'll just start seeing if some things pop up. There we go. So creation, turning old to new. What does the word innovation mean to you? Great, a new method. Right, so this is a word cloud, so it will make words that appear repetitively the most larger. So I'm seeing creative and new method, new approach. Oh, I love this one. Willing to try new things. I love that because it speaks to mindset, which is a big part of innovation. Creation, discovery. Ooh, another great one, involvement. New way of thinking. Right. So you can keep you can keep dropping your words in there. We can come back and check the word cloud in just a second. When we think about the word innovation, I love those statements that said, around mindset, new way of thinking, willing to try something new. And often that's what it is when we're trying to innovate in our classroom. So today I'm going to present to you a framework to help us to think through how do we use technology in this terms of innovation to really get to some student-centered learning and practices in our classroom. So the model that I'm going to introduce to you today, we don't have enough time to do the whole thing, is called the Hack Model of Innovative Instruction. And this work came out of Northwest Nazarene University. Well, I was going to say a few years ago, but when you say a few years ago and you start to count, and it's actually more like 10 years ago, this model was developed. And the goal of this model is to move through these 4 phases. You start in the green, which is highly structured. You move to allowed choices, consistent application, and knowledge-centered to really get to that PBL, whether it's project-based learning, passion-based learning, design thinking centered instruction in your classroom. How do we get there? These are going to be our kind of baby steps to getting there. So today, my goal is to talk to you about highly structured and allowed choices, which this is where we're going to talk about the introduction of technology and using it within our instruction in a systematic way, so we can start to shift ownership from teacher to student and use the technology so students are producing and not consuming on it. So we've talked a lot about the word innovate, and this is the innovator's mindset, and it comes from an author, George Couros. If you haven't read his book yet, Innovator's Mindset, I highly recommend that you check it out. But he has defined this term, the innovator's mindset. And he says that it's the belief that ability, intelligence, and talents are developed, leading to the creation of better ideas. And he has these 8 characteristics of an innovator's mindset. And he talks about these are 8 things that we should see happening in our classroom. And the first one is being empathetic. So they have the teacher in the student's shoes. And then the second one is talking about being problem finders. Start with a question, finish with an answer. About being risk takers. And that applies to both us teachers and our students. How do we be risk takers? Talks about being networked. Obviously, all of you are very networked because you're here today. You have a giant network that you're engaged with. But how do we leverage our network as teachers and educators to bring these innovative practices in our classroom? How can we be observant? How can we be creators? And this is a really big, important piece, a part of the framework that I'm going to talk about today is having students create and produce rather than consume. How do we build resilience? Well, that's through trying and failing and trying again. So how do we create that environment in our classrooms? And really big, how do we hold a reflective practice in our classroom? A lot of learning comes from deep reflection. So here's a quote from George Couros. This is from his book, The Innovator's Mindset. The innovator's mindset takes the growth mindset a step further by focusing on using one's ability to learn to play the piano to create music. The innovator's mindset can be defined as the belief that the abilities, intelligence, and talents are developed so that they lead to the creation of new and better ideas. The growth mindset is crucial in one's openness to learning. But to change education and prepare students for their futures, we need to adopt an innovator's mindset for ourselves and instill this mindset in our students. We must focus on creating something with the knowledge that has been acquired. I'm going to read that last line one more time. We must focus on creating something with the knowledge that has been acquired. So when we think about what this could look like, go ahead and hop back over to our Menti. And the question is, When we talked about those 8 innovators mindset, those 8 characteristics and the quote that I just read to you, what are some things that you are thinking right now of what this could look like in the classroom? This could be any classroom, K-12, higher ed, in your school. If you're an admin, you could think through the lens of your teachers. What could this look like in the classroom? Active learning, absolutely. Putting ideas together in new ways. Ooh, asking hard questions. Project-based learning, absolutely. Ooh, flexible grouping, flipped classroom. Interesting classes involved students. I love interesting classrooms. That makes me think we're creating based upon what students are interested in. Cooperation approach, engaged critical thinking and problem solving, gifted programs. Let's see if I can scroll. Oh, there we go. Scrolled. Ooh, gamification. That's a great way to do something like this in the classroom. Let's see if I can get rid of that. There we go. Probing questions. Lessons as a game, as a story. It looks like a team which involves discussing, sharing, and comparing different perspectives. Absolutely. Hands-on activities. Everything that we have here really describes a classroom where students are active in their education. We're not sitting and getting, and they are engaged in this talking, in this cooperative learning, in these discussions, critical thinking. So let's hop back over to my slides. Let's talk about how we get there with technology. Everything that you guys have just described are what we are wanting our students to graduate with. We want them to be multi-literate. We want them to be creators, collaborators, contributors, problem solvers, and self-directors. And so that begins in how we choose to plan our lessons in the classroom. So we're going to dive into this first part of the framework that we're using, the hack model. Each phase of the hack model is centered around attributes that help push the work forward in the classroom. In this green one for highly structured, we are going to start right at the beginning. You are given a set of classroom iPads. So you're given a cart, you're given Chromebooks. I've seen iPad carts and Chromebook carts become really great podiums for teachers to set their book on top of, to teach from, to have that stack of graded work that needs to get done and have it up there, right? So how do we open that up and use it effectively? Because it can be scary. You can maybe thinking about how do we use technology in our classroom, because it puts teachers in a vulnerable position of maybe you don't feel as comfortable on the technology. That's okay. We're going to talk about it. Maybe you're worried about what if the program works or the internet goes out. It will probably happen, right? And so we're putting ourselves in this position where we know we're going to come across challenges, and are we going to be able to navigate them? All right. So highly structured is that first step in navigating some of those challenges. So highly structured is about replacement activities, which I'm going to go into detail about. It allows educators to see what technology can look and feel like while building classroom management and procedures. So our attributes for highly structured, we'll talk about teacher-directed instruction, which is different from direct teaching. We'll talk a little bit about management procedures and routines that you might have to have in your classroom, replacement activities. We're going to talk about building capacity in the devices and platforms. multiple exposures to those. And this one, we always say, we're going to talk about low rigor, which is not something we talk about in education, right? Say, what? Low rigor? But we're going to talk about that balance of rigor between content and technology, and that really important balance that you need to pay attention to. Okay. I'm not going to, well, yes, I'll pull up this as I'm going. If you have questions, I have a little box on our Mentimeter. Oh, I need that to go away. There we go. As we're going, if you have questions about highly structured, which is the phase that we're going to talk about here, you can throw them up here, and I'll try to talk about those as we're going through them, okay? And then you could also throw it in the chat as well. Okay, I used a really specific word here, platforms. When I say the word apps, usually the first thing that comes to students' minds and our minds are games, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, the zombie game that my fifth grader just downloaded last week, right? So the first thing we want to do with technology in our classrooms is we want to be really intentional about the language that we use when we talk about it. We use the word platforms. And when you ask your students, and you can ask them, when you hear the word platform, what does that make you think of? Often when you have this conversation with students, I've had it enough to know some of the things that they say. They might say a stage, or, someone's up there presenting something. And it leads us to, yes, it is a stage. A platform is somewhere where someone's standing up and giving a speech or showing you something. And that's exactly how we are going to use these apps in our classroom. We are going to use these as platforms to demonstrate and show off what you know, okay? So the first job is being really intentional about how you talk about the technology in your classroom. The second thing that you'll need to think about as you integrate technology is management. Technology is a management multiplier, amplifier, right? You open up that iPad cart and you put them all out there. It's like when you get out the math manipulatives, right? Students are excited and they want to dive in and use. And so we have to be really mindful about the routines that we have around our devices. So you'll need to think about device management. How are you going to get their attention when devices out? If you have iPads, you're going to say Apple's up. If you have Chromebooks or a laptop, you're going to say clamshell your device, and teach that routine that once you say that, the student flips it over and eyes are on you, just like any routine you might have in your classroom. You're going to need to talk about digital citizenship. You cannot introduce technology without bringing digital citizenship right alongside, because we need our students to know that we are one person, both face-to-face and online, because our kids are kind of living in this world where they think they have two identities, my online identity and my in-person identity. And so it's really important that we talk about that. We talk about safe practices online and digital footprints online. So you're going to have to start bringing in that digital citizenship piece. You're going to have to figure out how you'll teach students to log in, how to access tools, right? Some of this is done for you by districts. They have specific ways they push out platforms or what apps or things you can access. You might need to think about an LMS, a learning management system. How are you going to get the digital work? You'll have to think about tech troubleshooting. And oftentimes there's a routine that you have for a non-tech environment, like maybe you use the routine in your classroom, ask three before me. That's a good one, right? Ask three students before you come ask me that question. Well, maybe you have three tech troubleshooters in your classroom, and they're your kids that can figure out anything on the device. You go to them for help. And so you're going to say, have you asked one of our tech people about that? And maybe they can help that student with what they're trying to solve on their device. You're going to need to think about, what does it look like to be collaborative on the technology? If we have all heads in working on something around on one device, what are the systems that we need to put in place for that? That digital workflow, and then that transition. So thinking about, basically, you need to take your routine that has no technology and say, what does it look like with this technology piece? And think that piece through. All right, this is the cornerstone of highly structured, a replacement activity. So it's 3 steps, and this is how you start to take that baby step into integrating technology in your classroom. First, I want your students to complete the work with the content in a medium that's familiar to them. So if your students are familiar with reading a text and filling out a worksheet, all content done that way, all content learning done. And then once students, we're moving to number 2, they're thinking out on a piece of paper. So they have that graphic organizer filled out. Maybe they have some questions answered. They have that math problem done. They're going to take those thoughts from that paper and they are going to transfer it into a new platform. And so what's happening here is this idea of rigor, okay, that I talked about at the beginning. When we are engaging in high content rigor, when we have our students working at meaningful, deep levels with content, we want the platform rigor to be low, okay? Because we've all been here before. This is probably my favorite example of this. So I know my multiplication facts, right? I could do all my times 2s and my 3s and my 4s, right? What if I was asked to do my times, do my multiplication facts, and something new for me? I don't know how to drive a tractor. I want you to do that at the same time. So I want you to be driving this tractor, rattling off multiplication facts. I'm not going to be able to do the content. I'm going to drive the tractor into the bale of hay. I'm not going to be able to do those things because I'm going to have what's called a split brain dynamic. I have content rigor overload. And so when we introduce a new platform to our students and content at the same time, their brains can't handle it. And we're not learning the content deeply and we're not learning the platform deeply. So our replacement activity is where we are mindful of that. Go right back to this slide. They do their content thinking first. They have a draft. They have that thinking out on paper. And then you introduce that new platform. Now that new platform becomes the high rigor. So now we're high rigor on the platform. We have all of our content thinking out. And so I can just transfer that in to the platform. Okay, you might be thinking, well, this is going to take more time. Yes, it will. It will take some more time to introduce platforms into your instruction. But once you do 1 or 2 replacement activities, and I have a visual for that, each one of these H's can represent a replacement activity. And as you introduce platforms to your students, they become proficient on them, or what my 5th graders like to say, legit. I'm legit on this platform. Yes, you are. You know how to do it. That means once they're proficient and they can independently navigate that platform, now I can begin to introduce content to them at the same time because that platform has become a medium that they're familiar with and they have independence on. It's becoming just like the textbook to them or that graphic organizer. And so when we think about a replacement activity, that we're doing those multiple replacement activities so they can build independence on those platforms, it really comes down to the important piece of why you need to separate those out is how our brains process information. It's really important that we have students do something with the content that we're giving to them, right? If they just straight sit and get, they're really not going to keep a lot of that. So this comes from Sousa's work, and it's about how the brain learns. And we start over here on this side where it says environment. These are all the things that are happening to our students when they're sitting in our classroom. They can smell the food being cooked down the hallway for lunch. They can hear the student tapping a pencil next to them. They're looking at maybe things that are hung up on the wall or outside the window. They are, maybe they have a bad taste in their mouth, which makes them start thinking about, I wish I could chew gum right now, right? So we're competing with this, with our instruction, with our students. And our brains are like they have these little, think about them as like Venetian blinds. Okay. And they're opening and closing. And we're giving students really important information. But our brain's job, it just pushes it straight out. That's its first thing. It's like, meh, straight out. If we can get information to students' immediate memory, still the brain's job is it's pushing that out. If we can get students to their working memory, if we can get content to students' working memory, meaning we're getting them to doing something with it, they have these file cabinets in the brain and they're storing and retrieving information. Ooh, now we're starting to build connections to things in our brains. Okay, this is where we start to build meaning and make sense. This is the goal of their replacement activity, is that they are storing and retrieving and beginning to engage in this process with the content and the platforms. And we want them to be producing on the platforms. So let's talk about some technology that you could have in your classroom. We're global right now, so I'm going to say some platforms, and they might be global. The first one I'm thinking about that's probably global is Khan Academy. Have we heard about Khan Academy maybe? Okay, that's a great platform, can be used in your classroom really well, but that's a consumption platform, right? My students are going to sit on there, they're going to watch a great video, get some good content, but they're not necessarily doing anything with it. Okay, I'm going to try to go with another one that might be kind of global. If you think about the platform Canva, has anyone heard of Canva? Okay. Canva is a platform where you are going to create something. You're going to make an infographic, slides, a video, an Instagram post. You are producing, you are making, right? Versus just purely consuming. If all of the technology in our classroom is just consumption, we've missed the boat on technology integration. Our technology in our classroom should be about production and getting students to work and to do in those. So when you think about these, I'm going to switch on back here. When you think about these replacement activities, this new platform that you are teaching to them should be a production-based platform. And that is the goal, okay? To get them producing on these platforms. Okay, that's going to bring us into this cycle, right? This is why it's so scary sometimes for teachers to use technology in their classroom, because the one thing I can promise you is it will fail. Okay, but we have to figure out how to navigate this failure and success cycle as teachers and for our students. We're building really great skills here when we encounter something that doesn't work and we figure out how to make it work, or we figure out a workaround. We're engaging in some really great mind work and practices there. Okay, I'm going to take a pause and hop over and just see what we got. If there's any questions here. Okay, so one question that is up here is, do you think high school is student-centered or teacher-centered? I think it depends on how you structure and set up the classroom, right? How you're structuring your activities and what you're doing. I think it can absolutely be either one of those. Can we address all students, for example, how we treat visually impaired students? Absolutely. And I think there's actually a lot of great technology pieces out there that can help adapt your lessons to for better accessibility for your visually impaired students. Some great platforms for that. I'm going to pause here, Dr. Francom. Is there anything else in the chat, or shall I keep going?
I don't see anything else in the chat, and nothing on Facebook either, other than just some really positive comments about how everything is going and how much people are learning.
Great. All right. Well, let's keep it up, guys. We only have a little bit left. So here's the deal, what we're going to talk about in our classroom. Each one of these H's represents a replacement activity. You're introducing a new platform, or you're having students engage in a platform to become independent on it. And you are going to do this multiple times, okay, until they become independent. Or remember what my fifth graders like to say? Legit. I'm legit on this. Yes, you are. That's in your toolbox. And now that's a platform that you can use and access. I know you've got this. Now we're going to start layering in the next level, which is where we're going to start shifting instruction. into the next phase of the hack model, which is called allowed choices. Once we've done multiple replacement activities, then we can engage in allowed choice activities. So that's the blue slice of the hack model. And allowed choices is about giving students choice in how they show or evidence their learning. Students now choose which platforms would be best to display their knowledge. So when we think about the shifts that are happening here, there's two shifts that happen and really starting in allowed choices. In the first shift is we're shifting how technology is used. So we've introduced and now we're shifting into some student choice options, which means there's a technology strand to that and an instruction strand that needs to move right alongside of that. If we don't shift our instruction as well, okay, then we will not be able to make it into that project-based learning environment. That's our goal, is to get to that really student-centered learning. So allowed choices is about this. It's about teacher-directed, not direct teaching. Not to say that direct teaching is wrong or bad, but we should use it in small pockets and amounts. This is about student choice, the choice of feeling control and choice. We're going to get buy-in and engagement from our students. I'm going to talk about the concept of modeling, this deeper levels of learning. That's going to be our instruction that we're trying to shift, rubrics, and again, that multiple exposures to these. So A is about a continuum. We're going to begin in one spot and we're going to end in another. And we're going to do that by this. First, at the beginning of allowed choices, the teacher, I am going to select the platforms for the allowed choice activities. I might say, all right, we've read this passage together and we're working on summarizing today. I want you to summarize this passage to me using our strategy, and you can choose between Book Creator to do that or Canva. If you choose Book Creator, I want you to make a page for each one of your points that you have from your summary. If you choose Canva, I would like you to make the infographic for that. So I probably need to give a little more instruction with what I want, but I'm telling the students, hey, this is what I need to know from you. Here are two platforms that you can show that learning to me. All right, so that's how we're going to start. We're going to do that same activity multiple times. Same concept of teacher provided choice. Then we're going to move to the middle of allowed choices. And I want to start to transfer that to students. So teacher transfers choice to students through posing questions. What platform should we use for this assignment? This is what I need from you. I have it outlined here on the board. What do you guys think would be a good platform to show your understanding here? Oh, I hear someone saying they would like to use Sway. I could see. How would you use Sway? Tell me about that. Oh, you would want to use Adobe Spark Video. Tell me, how would you use that? And then you start to get student ideas in there. So I'm transferring that to my students. And then the final phase, the end of allowed choices, is I'm going to present my lesson. I'm going to outline what I need in my product, and students can self-select the platforms that they want to use because they're independent in the platforms and they've learned how to make a choice. Sometimes I think we skip teaching students how to make choices because we think they should know how to make a choice, right? I have eighth graders. They should know how to make a choice. I'm teaching high school. They should know how to make a choice. But it's about being really intentional about this is what's needed inside this product, what tool, what's going to be the best tool to get you there, but also meets their interest as learners, right? And so we're scaffolding that approach for students.
And Dr. Van Beek, there's a
Yeah.
question. I thought it was a good question. Aisha asks,
Yeah.
what about students who don't find anything interesting and don't participate in anything? I mean, you could probably address both of those things. They don't find anything interesting, or just some that just are shut down and don't want to participate in anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be obviously a multitude of reasons why a student is shut down in the classroom or maybe doesn't want to participate. But if we're thinking content or delivery of content, am I engaging my students in how my content is being delivered? Are they shut down because I'm just upfront lecturing the whole time? Do they have some choice in that content? Do they have some voice? Maybe we need to learn about, oh, ancient Egypt. Maybe that's what we're learning about. I know we have some people from Egypt today. And maybe they get to select what specific things that they want to look into. So trying to give some choice in there to create that buy-in. Also, naturally, as we're giving choice in platform and what students are producing, that will create buy-in. I hear over and over, I just got done teaching a class on this model specifically, and they have to teach lessons in their classroom on an H activity and an A activity. And over in their reflection, I was so surprised by my student engagement. I didn't think just by using this platform, they would be more engaged in this activity, and they were. And so I think it's how are you delivering, and then where is student voice and choice in that? How have you connected with them as a learner, is what I would say.
Interesting, interesting response to what you just said, Maha, Maher, excuse me. With those students, I asked them to be my helper to get confidence. I
Yeah,
thought that's a clever way to do it. And by the way, I don't think there's any student these days who isn't associated with technology in some way. They all have cell phones, they have iPads and
absolutely.
so forth. And so I think it's not maybe the content as much as it is the method that are being used. So I love this one about ask the student to be your helper. And that's a great idea.
Yes, I agree with that. How are you engaging them in this process? All right. So a big thing about allowed choices is, as you noticed when I was talking through that continuum, I was modeling. I was thinking aloud and sharing my thoughts, my metacognition. And that's how we are going to teach students how to make that choice is modeling. This is something, if you're elementary, you probably do this all the time. You're reading in your book and you say, I wonder what our main character is going to do next. I wonder how it would look if I partitioned the fraction bar this way, right? When we share our thinking, we're modeling for students, and we want to do that same thing with choices. All right, I'm gonna kind of skip ahead just a little bit here. A really big thing about this piece of work, because what we're starting to do is shift teacher positionality in the classroom, okay? And instead of teacher always up here in front, we want to slowly start to, as we visually, we're going to shift the teacher to the side of the classroom, okay? Where you are on the side of the learner. You're not up front giving the content, but we want the learner to maybe start to begin to get their content on their own, engage in practices on their own, and try to shift from just being sage on the stage, right? Probably something that we've always heard. So as we do this and we shift and we give students choice in their product, you are going to get maybe 30 different looking assignments, all still reaching back to your same goals. But students might choose to make you a video. They might choose to make an infographic, a slide deck. They might choose to do a written summary. And so when we think about how do we grade something like that, we really have to lean into the practices of rubrics. Rubrics will change your teaching practice. I promise you. If you're not engaged with them, they will change your practice. And there's 4 questions that you have to ask yourself as you begin to start to write a rubric. What do I want my students to know? At the end of this lesson, what do I want to make sure that they know? How deeply do I want them to learn it? What's my level of depth of learning there? Where do I need them to be? What evidence will I accept? What am I okay with? Okay. And maybe this is you're somewhere in that A continuum. And maybe you say, I'm okay with a video or an infographic. Okay, make it a teacher directed choice lesson. And then that 4th question is, have I given them a tool? Do they have a tool to be able to make this product? All right. And that's going to lead you into creating rubrics that allow you to grade multiple types of products that are turned into you. And here's just an example. It's a one-page Word document that I had to cut in half to fit on these slides. But this is a student task sheet. And it is about, I think this is a fourth grade standard in the United States, about equivalent ratios, unit rates, and quantities. So ratios, okay? So up here at the top, I have 3 things that I want my students to do for me. Okay, I've defined this is what I want from them. Okay, I've given them this rubric here over content, requirements, presentation, reality, and workload, because this is a group project, what I'm expecting from them. And so this is where I say, this is what I need from you. What tool are you going to use to do it? All right, now produce the product for me. And then that releases me as a teacher from the front of the classroom to the side where I can go and work with individual students. I can pull small groups. I can extend the lesson. I can provide scaffolds to students who need it. Okay, so we're moving into this space where we have defined what we want from the students, and the rubric is the key thing to getting that independence there. So what are you building in this? You're building student and teacher capacity. You're building student choice and engagement. And really the ultimate goal here is you're building independent learners for project-based learning. Okay. And we do that through these repeated moments of this transfer of ownership to students, and starting to build up their skills. Now, I told you there's 2 strands, all right? We're talking about shifting technology, which we've talked about quite a bit, and then our instructional practices as well. I'm going to give you 4 instructional strategies that are quick and easy that can help you start to shift to have more student discussion in your classroom. The first one is a classic, and I'm sure you've heard of this before, but we can never forget about the think, pair, share, because this is an amazing instructional strategy when used well, right? To begin to have students to talk to one another in the classroom. So you're going to ask a question, and first you're going to ask your students to think independently about the answer to that question, not share anything, think independently. Then you're going to ask students to pair up with one another and talk. And then you're going to share and have a class discussion. We're scaffolding students into that whole class and discussion. Lots of different ways you can do this. You can have movement in the classroom by having them get up and share, finding new partners. You can think about the level of questioning that you're using. Lots of different ways to engage with this one. This one's a fun activity called Give One, Get One. So you are going to, as you'll have your students, I always like to use sticky notes with this. So maybe you've finished an activity or you're in the middle of something and you give students 2 sticky notes and you want them to write down 2 takeaways from this lesson or 2 questions that they might have. And you're going to stand up, play some music, have them walk around, and then pair up with someone. They're going to share with each other their sticky note, what's written on there, and then they're going to switch sticky notes. They're going to give a sticky note and they're going to get one. And then you're going to have them pair up again and share and switch. Give a sticky note, get a sticky note. Just a good, fun way to get them up and moving and get them engaged with each other, get them reflecting and discussing with one another. Okay, expert groups. So expert groups is a strategy where if you have a block of content, like for example, I've just put together a workshop on blended learning for a group of teachers. And there are 4 different blended learning models that I'm going to introduce them into. And I've made 4 expert groups, one on each of those models. They have some content that they're going to look at. They're going to become the expert. And then they're going to come back to the whole group and teach each other about those different blended learning models. You can use this across contents. You can use this in any content. And it's a great way to get students up and moving and thinking and sharing. Okay, last one, Socratic seminar. This is an open discussion for students. The goal is for students to really own the questions and the dialogue that's happening and the discussion itself. But think you could have one circle, you could have an inner circle and an outer circle. I often like to have students write questions as entry tickets to the discussion. And I have those students, all right, who's going to kick it off? And they have to ask the first question, and their job is to engage 3 or 4 times, whatever it is, in this discussion together. And so there's lots of great resources online about Socratic Seminar. I don't have a super lot of time to go into great detail. All right, 4 platforms to share with you for takeaway. These are great platforms to start with replacement activities tomorrow, Monday, in your classroom. Canva. You can do so many things with Canva. If you haven't used it, I highly suggest that you get in there. Infographics, videos, posters, websites, booklets. It is a bang for your buck platform. There's lots of free features on it. There is a premium version if your school is interested in that, or just for your classroom. Lots of free things that you can do though. All right, Adobe Express. This is my other platform that is a go-to. You can quickly create videos. It's so nice for like our littles, like kindergartners, can make videos on Adobe Express super easily. And it really empowers them to record their voice and then they hear it. It's super great. So lots of templates, lots of community things on there that are shared. The next one, Book Creator. You can make class books, you can make individual books, you can record your voice, you can record video, you can put image, text, and pictures, and it's a digital book. Well worth your time to look at Book Creator. It can read the text. It has like a reader, so it can read the text on there, whatever is written. So it's great. And then last 2, these are 2 for teachers to use. These are 2 AI platforms. One is called Magic School AI, and the other one is Edu AI. These platforms are, well, magical in the sense of the AI that it uses to help you create rubrics, lesson plans, cooperative learning lesson plans, Socratic seminars. It would help you plan one. So well worth your time to take a look at these 2 platforms to see how it can help you with your workload as a teacher, which is heavy, right? Our workloads are heavy as teachers. So this is a way that we can use AI to help decrease some of that and create some great things for the classroom. All right. That's all that I have for you guys today. Thank you for coming and listening. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you all. I do have my contact information here. I do lots of different consulting things with schools or districts, online and face-to-face. I love this stuff. It's my passion. And so please reach out if you have any questions about the presentation or anything. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Usually, Dr. Ray, oh no, I usually take over now, don't I? Anyway, yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Van Beek. That was excellent. There's a lot of good tools. I put some of the links of the different items that you were talking about in the chat and also on the Facebook chat for those that are watching there. And I know I'm gonna get in and I'm gonna check out especially the Magic School and EduAid. I haven't looked at that too much. I know a lot about Canva and some of the other things, but this is very eye-opening. And just a good opportunity for us to just keep building our skills because there's so many things changing in technology nowadays and so many things that as educators, many of us want to push away and say, no, we don't want to be a part of it. But we need to embrace some of those things to actually help us out better and engage students a little bit more too. I think we have to be careful and a balanced approach. And I think you went over that very well. So with that, Dr. Ray, I'll let you go over your words of wisdom, and then we will post the survey link in the chat.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Van Beek. This has been kind of mind-boggling for me to get your ideas on this. There was a question that came up at the end that we didn't address, and Dr. Jake said it'd be a good question. And that is, what do we do in areas where they have very limited access to anything online or whatever? And I think that that's something we need to help teachers in some parts of the world to deal with that. And the other comment that I would make is, as you know, as many of the schools we go into throughout the world, there are signs about put your cell phones away, no, don't use these in school. And I think schools are becoming more accustomed to the fact that technology is a part of instruction and it will aid instruction. Remember that these students, when they leave school, they're on a cell phone, an iPad, a notebook, whatever. And so that's their lives. That's their life. So let's just keep that in mind. But I'd like to kind of leave you with two thoughts. First of all, when schools tell students to put technology away, it's like asking a doctor to save someone's life with one hand behind the back, because that's part of their life. And the other thing I just want to leave you with is technology in the classroom is not the goal. Enabling learning in a way that students understand is the goal. So I leave that with you.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. I always appreciate your words of wisdom. It kind of brings us back to reality and seeing what we need to really focus on in the classroom. In the chat, I posted the survey link, so please get on and fill that out. That is the only way that we're able to monitor if you attended, and make sure you have to put in 3 specific things that you learned. And we had a lot of good tools, but 3 specific things that you learned that you can implement right into your classroom right away. And so with that, while you're filling that out, we'll give you a chance to ask questions if you want to raise your hand, or if you want to put something in the chat, that would be great too. So please let us know. I think we'll start off with the question that Dr. Ray alluded to. We have, Dr. Van Beek, we have some schools that are from really remote areas, and technology is very, very limited. What are some thoughts and ideas that you have to help students engage? Because this is a very important tool, regardless of where you live.
Yeah. Yeah, so if there's limited technology, so maybe you might have a few devices in the classroom, I think if you can look at opportunities for collaboration around the technology, so using it in a group way and creating systems and routines around that. Also, if you think about a really great strategy, if you are a limited technology, so not a whole class set, if you can lean into some blended learning practices where maybe you are doing a station rotation and one of those stations is creating the product on the technology, that could be an option. If you're a zero tech, no tech school, you can still integrate student choice and voice into your classroom. You can still create lessons in which students are engaged and you begin shifting that dynamic and work towards that project-based learning still. When you think about no tech, you're really, really focusing on shifting your instructional strategies to innovative practices rather than just sit and get. So that's what I would lean into if I didn't have any technology in my classroom. Also, if you have no technology and your school has, I mean, like it was just said, we all have phones, right? And so how can you leverage the technology that maybe students are bringing in with them in a way into your lessons?
That's good. And there's a program or a product that doesn't work off the internet, but it is a big database, a big hub that you can bring into your school and then link cell phones onto it or laptops, and it comes in an entire program. I'm trying to think of what it is. I actually learned about it from a professor in NNU a couple of years ago when he was working out there in Asia, actually. So I'll have to think of that.
Yeah.
A good question from Marilyn. She asks, is it possible to get a copy of this session? And for everyone, all of these sessions are streamed on Facebook, so you can actually go and watch it right now. The recording after we're done, it'll be on Facebook, but they're also uploaded to our YouTube channel. So please get onto our YouTube channel and subscribe to us there and follow us, and you can watch the workshops there. And I know there are people that will actually take this recording and they'll go and watch it as a staff and then talk about some of the content and pause and discuss how you can bring some of this into your entire school, into each one of the classrooms. So another great idea. I'll post the YouTube link here in just a minute. But are there any other questions? Well, that's okay. It is a challenge to with all these new tools, and I think that would be one of my questions, Dr. Van Beek, is how do you figure out which tools to use when you have so many to choose from, and your different grade levels? And as administrators, I know there's a couple of them here, like Mr. Tony here in Cairo. How do you figure out which ones you want to implement and which ones have a viable option to really improve student performance?
Yeah. I would say those platforms that have multiple avenues of outputs on them, right? So something that's maybe not singular focus, but like a Canva, a book creator, and Adobe Spark, you can really tap into lots of different learning styles with those platforms, which is part of the goal, right? Is for students to be able to demonstrate their understanding in a different way, maybe than a traditional written way. Um, Also, I didn't mention this. I talked about digital citizenship, but Common Sense Media is kind of, the digital citizenship gold standard. And so they have lots of resources. You can look up any platform and they have it rated and they tell you about any privacy concerns, any student concerns. And so from that admin level, that would be a good place for you to look as well to vet platforms.
And Common Sense Media has like movies and TVs and
Yes,
books.
they have
It,
everything on there. Yeah.
it could be a tool for anyone to use, it looks like. That's great.
Yes.
Another question is from Shema. She asked, can we use these platforms with young learners? Probably, she's probably referring to kindergarten, first grade.
Yes, absolutely. I have done training with teachers K-12, and I am seeing kindergartners to 12th graders engage with the platforms that I shared on the screen today. Does it take a little more scaffolding for a kindergartner? You bet. But you should see how excited they are when they can show you their book creator. Or another fun one to use with kindergartners is, oh, I'm going to blank on the name right now, but it's this platform where you take a picture of something and you can make the mouth move. They love that one. And they can record their story. So yes, you can absolutely use this with young learners. And it's just like everything we do with young learners. We think about how does this look from the kindergarten viewpoint? And what do I need to do to scaffold my students to get there? It's that same thing that we do in our classrooms all the time.
That's great. And another question that I'm surprised that it didn't come out earlier is, what do you do about with students that are using AI in everything?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So just for the young learner one that just asked, Chatterpix is the platform that I couldn't think of. Super fun for kindergarten.
Oh,
Okay. AI. Yeah. If I, my first thing with AI is you think about your assignment or your product design. So if you are just asking for straight writing, absolutely. AI can do that all day for our students, right? And so maybe think about the ways in which you're wanting to get the information from students, and can you change it into a way that is not producible by AI? I think it's also okay to teach students how you can use AI. So let's talk about AI and talk about the appropriate use of it. For this assignment, you could use AI to help you with your outline, to brainstorm some ideas, or do your final editing check for you. Okay, you cannot use AI for these things in this assignment. So can we teach them how to use it as a tool rather than if we just, when we ban things, that's when they become much more desirable from our students. So can you make your assignment output different so it can't be produced by AI? Can you teach students an acceptable way to use AI within the assignment? That would be my good thing.
that's great. That makes sense. That's changing the scope of education quite a bit.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Yeah, Tony had some good thoughts. He says, it seems one challenge is to move teachers to a comfort zone using technology. The lack of familiarity by teachers contributes to a lack of confidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're 100% on with that, Tony. And part of that replacement activity is building confidence in teachers too, right? And we have to, as administrators, we have to say to our teachers, it's okay if this goes wrong when you do this. It's okay. And giving that permission to them.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you again, Dr. Van Beek. We have a lot of people who've submitted their workshop survey, and we appreciate that and appreciate the time and effort that you put into making this happen.
Absolutely.
And for everyone taking time out of their day to come and visit and be part of this. Again, your certificates will be sent out Tuesday evening our time, so it'll be Wednesday morning your time. But if you do have any questions or if Array Global can help you out in any way, please let us know. And again, a big thank you, Dr. Van Beek and everyone else for attending. So have a good rest of your day and appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.